Hey, what's up, zoners, and welcome to the earliest waiver wire show on the planet. Today, I am going to be going over all the players on your waiver wire that you should pick up and how much you should spend on them. We have a wide receiver. I started him, okay? He's available in 85% of leagues. A second year, third round rookie? So he's got that second year wide receiver thing going for him. Caught 2 touchdowns, almost 100 yards, man. 1 yard away. 1 yard away. He is now the number one wide receiver on this team. They shipped off the number one wide receiver. So how much are you going to spend on him? I'll tell you, man. I will tell you. There's also a quarterback, man. He got all of his weapons back and healthy. He was a quarterback 7 last year when he had those weapons healthy. So he is available in over 80% of leagues. If you need a quarterback, man, spend your money on this guy. Remember, this is an early show. I am recording this at the halftime of the afternoon show. So I will be adding new players in the comments. Come back for that. Hey, I've got all my notes typed out. I will share that with you in a second. You can do it! All right, man. Let's start off hot with the wide receivers. This guy, right now, I started in my flex. I think, 2% of people started him in ESPN rosters. I'm part of that 2%, man. 16% rostered. I'd put 30% fab down on Cedric Tillman, second-year wide receiver out of Tennessee. 7 receptions on 9 targets for 99 yards. That led the team, but he had 2 touchdowns. That's a big thing there from Jameis Winston versus Baltimore this week. 12 targets and led the team in receptions last week. All right, so Njoku had like 15 targets. This fool had 12 targets. Watson is out forever, maybe, hopefully. Jameis Winston is now in, and Jameson don't give a fuck. All right. His depth of target is ridiculous. Cedric Tillman, third-round draft pick in 2023, so the draft capital is there with Kevin Stefanski. Elijah Moore had 12 targets. Jerry Jeudy had 8. So Elijah Moore still led the team in targets, but I'm all about those big plays and touchdowns from Jameis Winston. That is what I want. Cedric Tillman will be getting you some W's, man. You will be eating some W's with Cedric Tillman. He does have a tough matchup next week versus the Chargers. Third fewest fantasy points per game to wide receivers. I'm still starting him, man. I love Jameis Winston just chucking the ball. Next up, Josh Downs, man. 48.6% owned. People have been dropping him, and I did not blame him. Blame you for dropping him. 15% fab I'd spend on him. Dude, he was only averaging 3.2 fantasy points per game with Richardson at quarterback heading into this league. So every single good game that Josh Downs has had this year has been with Joe Flacco. So I get it, man. You were probably pissed off. Dropped him. I understand. Well, he had 4 receptions on 9 targets. And 9 targets, dude, that was like double of the second highest, receiver on that team. He led the team for 109 yards and a touchdown versus Houston week 8. Again, dude, Anthony Richardson sucks. I do not know how long they can keep him in here. Joe Flacco's sitting back there. Still, if Joe Flacco comes in, it's even better for Josh Downs. So he was a third-round draft pick, just like Cedric Tillman, in 2023, man. So 2 awesome wide receivers are leading off this waiver wire show. And so the draft capital is there for him at Minnesota week 9. Dude, my Vikings are giving up the most fantasy points per game. 2 wide receivers at 44 points. It is a pass funnel defense. They stop the run, they kill the run, but they allow so much passing. Holy shit. And this guy just made the list, man. Xavier Legette, 24% owned. I'd spend 10% of my fab on him. He just had a touchdown with Bryce. Bryce with like 5 for 6. Dude, 60 yards and a touchdown. I was like, holy shit, dude. Maybe things are turning around. We need to pay attention to this at the end of the game. Still, though, Dalton in a car crash. Bryce Young was in. I was like, avoid all Panthers. Start everything that there is to do with the Denver Broncos. I thought the Denver Broncos defense was going to be the highest scoring fantasy asset this week. And look at this, man. Touchdown right off the bat to Xavier Legette. So that's amazing. He is a first-round rookie, dude. So the draft capital is there. Canales did that, and Canales is a genius with Godwin and everybody else, man, all the way over to Geno Smith. He does have he's going against New Orleans next week. They're giving up the 13th most fantasy points to wide receivers, so an average matchup for Xavier Legette. Pay attention to this game, man. If this continues, we can start Xavier Legette. And again, Deontay Johnson is out. He is to be traded, so the number 1 wide receiver on this team is up for grabs. Adam Thielen is on IR. He will come back. Next up, man, Demario Douglas, all right? I started him last week, and that fool was down with the sickness. 35.1%. I'd spend 10% fab on him. So he should be available in most leagues, man. And he was leading the team in targets before Drake May left before the half. It was 2 targets, all right, but he was leading the team. Okay, 9+ targets in 3 games this season. Only 12 yards on 3 targets today, but it was a terrible matchup against the Jets. And then Brissett took over and threw the ball to Butte and Henry. So he's at Tennessee week 9. Tennessee still pretty good against the wide receivers this year. 5th fewest fantasy points per game, 21.5 to wide receivers. Not great, but I would start Demario Douglas in my flex, man. If Drake May starts, it all hinges on Drake May. Let's see. Jalen McMillan, all right? So I picked Cedric Tillman. That's the person I picked up. Everybody else was going with Jalen McMillan. 41.8% owned. So everybody did go out and pick him up, thinking that he was going to be the guy for Baker Mayfield. It looks like Baker Mayfield might just be spreading the ball a little bit like Jameis Winston is, but at least Cedric Tillman got those touchdowns. I spent 10% fab on Jalen McMillan. 4 receptions on 7 targets. That did lead the wide receivers in targets. That's what we're looking for 35 yards. And he did have a rush, man. So they're trying to get the ball in his hands. Shepard left and then returned week 8 with a hamstring injury. So Shepard was the other wide receiver there I was nervous about taking over that slot role. 5 targets. 8 targets once Evans left week 7. So he was getting a lot of those Evans routes. Godwin out forever. Evans out for 3-ish weeks. So they are just looking for somebody to throw the ball to. K. Dotton, league winner. He is a 3rd-round rookie, man. A lot of 3rd-round wide receivers right now. Jalen McMillan at Kansas City week 9. And Kansas City, dude, you do not want to start wide receivers against 4th fewest fantasy points per game. 21.3 points to wide receivers. Jalen McMillan, go pick him up just to see what's going to happen. But I would not want to start him next week. And then here we go, dude. Parker Washington. You're all, who the fuck is Parker Washington? 0.1%. Oh, nobody knows who he is, man. I spent 1% fab on him. Christian Kirk is out with a shoulder injury. And then Brian Thomas Jr. went out with a chest injury. And then this guy came in, got 4 targets, 46 yards. Green Bay, week 8. He was a 6th-round draft pick last year. So he's at that 2nd-round wide receiver bump going for him. And he's the last person there, dude. And that defense is so shitty, they have to throw the ball. At Philadelphia, week 9, 10th most fantasy points per game, 29.1 to wide receivers. This guy might be a secret streamer flex option for you next week. All right, on to the quarterbacks. Running backs are coming up, man. It's just there are no new running backs. It's all handcuffs. Holy shit. This is like the thinnest week for running backs I can remember. But hey, Tua Tagovailoa is back, man. 48% roster, so you can still go out and pick him up. 15% fab. And again, man, I don't think people will be picking him up after this week. But this was the first week back from a concussion, for God's sakes. I'm surprised he ran the ball. He ran the ball 3 times for 13 yards versus Arizona. He threw the ball 38 times. If Tua throws the ball for 38 times, you would expect 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. Not the case, especially against Arizona, man. 230 yards, 1 touchdown. Timing was off. Look for that to get better, all right? Quarterback 9 finished week 1. That his only other full game this season is this right here. At Buffalo, week 9. They are giving up the 10th fewest fantasy points per game, 15.1 points to quarterbacks. And Tua does not do well against Buffalo. Only has 7 touchdowns and 10 interceptions in his 8 games versus Buffalo in his career. So, hey, man, I would like to pick up Tua, but I would not be starting him until after next week. Week after next. Still, quarterbacks, man. I've got Sam Darnold. I would love to have Tua on my team right now. All right, Matthew Stafford, dude. 18.5% rostered, 10% fab. Threw the ball 34 times for 279 yards, but for 4 touchdowns versus my Vikings. Part of the problem giving away, that's why the Minnesota Vikings are leading the league in points given away to people right now as far as wide receivers. Kupp and Puka are back, man. Healthy. Combined for 150 yards, over 150 yards, and a touchdown. And last year, when Puka and Kupp were healthy, Matthew Stafford was a quarterback 7, man. So he's not that upper tier, but he is right there when he's got all his weapons, including Kyren Williams. At Seattle, week 9, giving up the 16th most fantasy points per game to quarterbacks. Average matchup for him. Pick up Matthew Stafford. Start him next week. Drake May, 13.6% rostered, so he's available everywhere. I've been waiting to pick him up. He had with the Jets, then Tennessee, and then somebody terrible, and then his schedule opens up big time. 5% fab I'd spend on him, but he is in concussion protocol right now. The fool got concussed, all right? Right before the second half. He only threw the ball 6 times for 23 yards, but he ran. This is why we like Drake May, man. He runs. 46 yards and a touchdown before halftime. So 18-plus fantasy points in both of his starts, and then concussed right here. At Tennessee, week 9, 13 fewest points It's not a great matchup. Two quarterbacks. Again, though, man, after this little slog right here, go pick up Drake May. But if you're desperate, pick him up right now. If you're in a 2-quarterback league or whatever you're doing. Then right here, dude, if you just want to roll the dice every single week, Jameis Winston, 3.3% rostered, 5% fab I'd spend on him, threw the ball 41 times. I do not expect that to be the case, dude. Their defense is really good. But it was Baltimore, so they were able to score some points. 3 touchdowns, man, and 334 yards, for God's sakes, versus Baltimore. DTR was the backup, but that was game plan only, says the coach. Winston is apparently the starter until he loses it, and for God's sakes, dude, he's not going to lose it after this week. Quarterback 3 overall. I owned him, or I owned Godwin, I can't remember. In 2019, I won a championship, man. That fool had 5,000 fucking yards. Average depth of target king. I was looking at old stats. He was literally setting records for average depth of target. He just throws the ball downfield more so than anybody in history. It's crazy. They get the Chargers next week. They are giving up the 11th fewest fantasy points per game. The Chargers hold people down, at least as far as points go. It should be more of a defensive game next week, but still, hey man, you could do a lot worse than starting Jameis Winston as your quarterback. Somebody coming up to my... Oh yeah, somebody is. Malik Willis next up, man. Jordan Love out with a lower body injury. It was the groin, man. He injured his groin, all right? Threw the ball 5 times for 56 yards and a touchdown, man. Super efficient. But again, we like Malik Willis because he runs the ball. 4 rushes for 23 yards. He played like a quarter, for God's sake, man. Versus Jacksonville, week 8. Love could be out for who knows how long, man. He's already been injured once this season. Malik, quarterback 20 and quarterback 6. Weekly finishes when filling in for Love earlier this season. So Love went out, and we were all surprised by how good Malik was. So, hey, man, go pick up Malik. He has Detroit next week. They're giving up the 18th most fantasy points per game, 16.2. Not a great matchup, but again, Detroit scores points, so they should at least be throwing the ball or trying to catch up a ton. Garbage time, dog. On to the tight ends. Hunter Henry, man, 42% owned, pretty much. Go pick him up before he's not available. He's literally going to be a top 5 tight end for the rest of the year with Drake May. 10% fab, 6 targets. He still led the team in targets without Drake May, all right? 45 yards, tight end 7, tight end 6 weekly finishes with Drake May so far this season, all right? So he's already been a tight end 7 twice, every time with Drake May. Tied for second in reception touchdowns last year, and he hasn't even been catching a lot of touchdowns this year, so that could still go back to what he is good at Tennessee week 9, and they are really good against the tight end. So terrible matchup for Hunter Henry. But man, he's the only person that they have to throw to on this team, so I'd start him anyways. So yeah, tough matchup next week, but still, go pick up Hunter Henry. Otherwise, it's going to be too late. Then here's a 1-week rental, maybe 2-week rental, maybe 3-week rental, maybe T. Higgins, who the fuck knows, rental. 10.4% owned. Mike Gesicki. 5% fab I'd spend on him. 7 receptions on 8 targets for 73 yards. That led the team, the yardage did. Versus Philadelphia, week 8, all right? So, and Philadelphia allows the fewest fantasy points per game to tight ends. And here we go, Gesicki hit 8 targets for 73 yards. Holy shit. Higgins is out, man, with the quad injury. He did not play. 13 targets for Gesicki over the first 2 games of the season with Higgins out. So, when Higgins is out, Gesicki is the fill-in. I thought it was going to be Yoshivas. I apologize. I did think that Yoshivas was going to have a big game this week. I was wrong. I do apologize. Mike Gesicki was a benefactor. Now we know, man. Now we know. Versus Las Vegas week 9. They are actually pretty good against the tight end as well, but who gives a shit, man? You saw what he did against this team. So, yeah, if Higgins is out, you have to start Gesicki in your tight end slot. Then here is another person, tight end that you never heard of, Grant Calcaterra, man. I have no idea what I was going to say. 0.8% rostered, available everywhere. I spent $1 on him, 1% fab. 3 receptions on 3 targets, man. For 58 yards versus Cincinnati, week 8. Are you a Goddard owner and you need a tight end? As long as Goddard is out with a hamstring injury, you could start this guy. He's got 58 reception yards plus in 2 of the last 3 weeks, and Goddard is a huge part of this offense. Devonta Smith does make me a little bit nervous because he finally broke out after his slump. But they get Jacksonville, man, and they're giving up the 6th most fantasy points to tight ends next week. So, hey, I'm telling you, if you need to stream a tight end, Calcaterra will be your man. Then, all right, man, I do apologize. Again, running backs are super thin. We were just looking at handcuffs. Tyrone Tracy, man, out-touched Singletary last week. 20% fab. He literally is pretty much the starter there. It's a 50-50 timeshare. more like 60-40 going to Tracy right now. Ray Davis, I was just watching. I'm actually watching this game. He was not getting anything, but still top tier handcuff. Kamani Vidal is a handcuff to me. Gus Edwards is still on IR. Who knows what's going to happen when he comes back? But Vidal has looked good. Braylon Allen got a touchdown, dude. So he is still a super valuable handcuff. Blake Corum, 4 rushes and 1 reception. I know that, what's his name, dude? And Kyren has the highest usage rate out of any running back in the NFL. So highest chance to get injured. And if Blake Corum goes in there, he should get a ton of work. He's a top tier handcuff. And then, hey, man, Trey Benson averaged 10 yards per carry today. That's pretty good handcuff, too. All right, everybody, that is the show. Thank you so much for watching. If you disagree with something I said, please comment down below. Remember to add your waiver wire ads in the comments as well, man. This is a group effort. I can't think of everything, and it's super important. If you actually did like the show, man, please give me a thumbs up. It sends us out to a ton more people, and that's what helps this show. So hopefully I earned a thumbs up. Hopefully I earned a subscription. We need subscribers, man. Just look at us, man. We're drowning here. We need subscribers. Give us a rope of subscriptions. And, hey, man, this is Tyler Big Turd Ward. We have our trade targets. I'm going to get some trade targets together. That will be coming out Tuesday morning. And this is Fantasy Red Zone. And I appreciate you.